Hi everyone, this is Isabel and I am very thankful that you are here watching my videos. I really appreciate the likes and comments that I have been receiving. It really means a lot to me. Anyway, I'm back for part 2 of this video series on how to make a junk journal. In the previous video, we covered a recycled hard-covered book. We used pretty paper for the cover of the book and protected the cover with Mod Podge, which will protect the journal when it's tossed around and used. You want to be able to go back and look at your journal for past memories. I also wanted to mention that there are so many ways to make a junk journal. This is one of the ways I make mine. I've learned how to make these from the many videos I've also watched. I can sit for hours and watch crafters show their own techniques. I always learn something new when I watch these videos. This is what I'm hoping for the videos I'm making. Nothing is new or innovative in how I make mine. I just enjoy making them and hope you can learn or revisit an old technique. I'm definitely not an expert in crafting, but I do love it. If crafting could be my actual profession, I would be happier than I already am. Who agrees with me? Okay, so back to the learning. We will begin with making the signatures. For this, you will need paper. Any paper that you would like would be perfect for this part. You will have to adjust the sizing depending on the book you chose. Even the pages within the signature can vary in size. I usually make my pages all the same height. The width might vary depending on the paper I'm using. Another thing to keep in mind is the size of the spine. I'm going to be making my journal with plain white cardstock. I'm going to do it this way to show that you don't need to have fancy and expensive paper for this book. So use any paper that you have or that you like. If you have a theme for your journal, consider using paper that will fit the theme. Depending on the weight of the paper and the size of the spine will determine how many pages you can include in your signature. You want your signature to be able to fold and hold its shape. Lighter paper will fold easier, but heavier paper will be sturdier for your embellishments later. Keep that in mind when deciding on the paper. If you'll mostly be journaling, then lightweight paper is fine. I'll be using lightweight cardstock. Fold the paper in half and then use a bone folder to crease the page. As you can tell, you can use anything to do this part. Since I need a ruler for this whole part of the project, I will use this also for the crease. At this point, I use the ruler to measure the height of the journal. Mine measures a little over 7.5 inches. I will cut off the difference to all the other pages before I fold all the other sheets. Don't throw the leftover pieces. You can use them later to embellish your journal. Now fold and crease all the rest of the pages you will be using. Then tuck them into the previous one to begin to make the signature. I will be using 4 sheets for my signature. I will be doing only 2 signatures because my spine is less than an inch. If you'll notice, this new journal has about the same size spine as this travel journal. Also notice how full it is. I tend to do this with every journal I make. So if you don't want your journal to be exploding like mine, then take a minute to think about what you'll be including in your journal. If my journal is themed, then I know I will be including pictures and ephemera. Also keep in mind the embellishments you will want to include, such as ribbons, flowers, clips, buttons, fabric, etc. We will be working on this section in the next video. That is the fun part. I can't wait for that one. I have no idea what I'll be doing, but I know I'm going to love it. Now onto the binding of the pages. You will need waxed linen thread. Other alternatives can be floss, embroidery thread, or twine. You will need scissors, a pencil or a pen, a paper piercing tool or an awl, or some tool that can pierce the paper, a book, mouse pad, and a ruler, and lastly you will need a needle. The needle has to have an eye that is big enough for the thread you will be using. Before we begin working with our signatures, let's get a scrap piece of paper. Make sure it is the height and width of your chosen book. Let's get our ruler and our pencil. We are going to mark 3 holes and evenly distribute them. It doesn't have to be precise. Start about an inch from the top and bottom and then mark the middle. Try to have the marks evenly distributed. Now let's get the paper piercing tool or whatever you're using. Place the template over the spine of the book and begin piercing the marks. Don't make the holes too big, just big enough to pierce the needle through. Now we are going to start marking and piercing the pages. This is when you will be needing the book or mouse pad. I like using the book, but the mouse pad will also do the job. Get your first page and place it between the book. Lay the template to the side of the page and make a mark with your pencil. Then clip all the pages of your signature and clip them to hold them in place. Press with enough force to pierce the paper, but not to tear or make the hole too big to where the binding will become loose later. You only want the holes to be big enough to allow your needle to go through all your sheets. Do this for all your signatures. Now on to binding the junk journal. We're almost done. You will need thread, needle, and scissors for this part. This is the last part and your book will be complete. Yay! We're almost done. Now thread the needle and grab your first signature. As you can tell, I cut a very long piece of thread. You don't need to cut it very long, maybe 24 inches. I always have needles threaded with some type of thread, so it doesn't go to waste if I cut it too long. Insert the needle in the middle hole from the inside of the page. Leave a tail about 3 to 4 inches long. You will be using the tail to make your knot at the end. Insert through and over the top or bottom of the page. It really doesn't matter which you start with. It's really hard to explain this, so I'm glad you're able to see me doing it. The holes might be too small in the beginning, so you will have to wiggle the needle a bit. You might also feel the thread too loose. Don't worry until you're at the end. You can then adjust the thread. Before knotting, check that the thread on the outside spine is nice and not loose. Pull on the inside thread to check that also. Once you come to the end, make a knot. I double knot to make sure it doesn't come undone. Not really sure if it's needed, but I do it anyway. Do the same with your remaining signatures. If you notice later that the spine is too loose, just de-thread the signature and do it again. The main thing is not to make the holes too big in the beginning, or else the spine will be too loose. Also, don't pull too hard on the thread when you're threading the holes, because for sure the holes will get too big. Oh my gosh, guys, my journal actually looks better than I anticipated. I'm not going to lie. My journals are always crooked in some type of way. I hate to measure, so I realize that's my fault. But this one looks good from the spine. The signatures are also even from the height. I also noticed that because I controlled myself on the number of pages I used, my completed journal might not be too chunky. Okay, let's not get carried away, Isabel. My journals are always chunky. That's it. You now have a junk journal that is ready to be embellished. Remember, this beautiful creation does not have to be a junk journal. It can be whatever you want. If you use watercolor or mixed media paper, then you can use it as an art journal. If you put lined paper, then you can use it as a regular journal or planner. It's all in how you want to use it. I will be leaving a link in the description box below. I updated some journaling cards that I plan on using for the next video where we will be embellishing the journal. I am a firm believer in including a lot of writing in our journals. So if you like to journal like I do, follow the link to get your download. I am leaving you with one further tip that you may already use, but it's a great one to remember. When you cut your journaling cards, leave the margins intact, whether it's the right or left. Once you're ready to include them in your journals, you can glue them to the page itself. You can fold the margin part of the card and glue or sew to the page. This can also serve as a place to further place more tags or photos. Please come back for the next video. I'm trying to have a set schedule for when I upload my videos. I think I'm looking at Tuesdays and Fridays. So come back on Friday for part 3 of this how-to series. And again, I thank you so much for visiting and I hope to see you next time. Bye.